Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 17, Visionary. O'Brien has to save Deep Space Nine from a series of conspiracies whilst experiencing time shifts into the future.
So soon we have another time travel episode.
Yeah, this one made a bit more sense. Actually, no, I don't know why I said that. This one made very little sense. They shouldn't do time travel.
So I take it you didn't like this one.
No, I actually really like this episode. It's just that any time travel episode has a minefield of plot holes, and this one is no exception. Although it's an O'Brien episode, and Colm Meaney is so lovable and such a great actor that he can carry it anyway.
I enjoyed this episode a lot, despite all the flimsy time travel stuff.
It's a likable idea. It's very sci-fi-ish, although they filled it with so much technobabble that it didn't feel like sci-fi anymore. But the jumping forward and seeing the future, it's a solid sci-fi idea, so that was good. And having it happen to O'Brien is good because then all the horrible stuff that he sees can scar him permanently.
So the count of O'Brien watching himself die is now at 3, if you include when he saw the replicant die.
How is it 3? Are you counting when he saw himself dead?
Yeah.
I would actually say it's 4, because you're forgetting the last time jump.
So there's the replicant time, and then what was the second time?
Well, okay, the replicant one, for our many listeners, is in Season 2, episode Whispers. He sees a replicant of himself die. So that's the first time. And then in this episode, he sees himself die, or his corpse, in 3 different ways. The first time, he sees the phaser blast his chest. The second time, he sees him dead of brain damage because Bashir didn't do the Brasilia archery scan or whatever it was called. And the third time, he dies of radiation poisoning in Ops.
Okay, I wasn't counting when he just saw his corpse. I was only counting watching the actual moment of death happen. But I don't think we need to be specific.
His body just gave up.
Yeah, let's go with 4. That's so funny when he hears that and he finds it unbelievable that he would die.
I know, which is odd because out of anyone, he's seen himself die more than the usual number, 0.
He's like, wait a minute. I'm impossibly resilient. There's no way I died.
When he says it's the first time he's seen himself die, which is sort of accurate. He said it was awful. And you just think, oh, you have to go through it so many times. Like most people in Star Trek might see it once. He's now seen it 4 times. Probably on the 3rd season, I bet he sees himself die again before the end of it.
That was a little weird to me that he didn't acknowledge the replicant's death.
Well, that wasn't really him. None of them thought the replicant was him.
But it's the idea of watching yourself die. In this episode, he talks about feeling for a pulse on his own neck. If he felt the replicant's neck, it would still feel like his own.
Yeah, but they've already established in Star Trek that clones and replicants are below insects on the chart of how much they care.
Totally disposable.
Oh, yeah. So, I guess we've talked a lot about death, but there's rather a strange sort of plot twist at the end where the O'Brien we've known and loved has now died. And the O'Brien we have is from a separate timeline.
Yeah, that's strange to think about.
That is probably the most interesting sci-fi idea that we've seen in a long time on Deep Space Nine, and they didn't really explore it much other than O'Brien saying, that was all a bit weird, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then, who was it? Bashir, who said, don't worry about it. You just have a few memories. The other one didn't.
Yeah, he dismisses it as if that's nothing.
Yeah.
No, don't worry, you're not a clone. You're the real deal, so you're cool.
I would think he would have an unending nagging feeling that he's in the wrong place, because technically he is.
Well, any of the stuff in this episode individually would mess a person up permanently, let alone all of it combined. He would need counseling at the bare minimum after this, yet Bashir just sort of says, hey, these things happen. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. It's odd that O'Brien is still a functioning person.
He shouldn't be.
He must have some kind of rock-solid personality. Nothing seems to be able to get him down, no matter how awful it is. Like, I don't just mean it was awful. It's way off the charts to see yourself die horribly in different ways. That kind of trauma is slightly beyond human experience. I don't know. Yeah, that would mess you up so bad. Poor O'Brien, he can't have a good day.
Maybe this is par for the course for Chief of Operations.
Oh, because it's O'Brien, this sort of stuff happens to him all the time, so he's not messed up by it. It's just like, yeah, these sort of things do happen. You're right, Bashir. I can't just brush it off. So, aside from the O'Brien A plot, there was this sort of B plot, although it was all mixed up and intertwined, of the Romulan delegation coming to get information on the Dominion.
As per the agreement.
Yes, did they ever actually say that before? They may have said it, I don't remember.
I don't know, but that is one undefined agreement. We give you this tangible thing, you give us info. How do you measure that? How do you enforce that? They could withhold information you would never know.
Yeah, and the Romulan was wildly unsatisfied with the information that he got. So, yes, that is a bad deal.
He should be mad at himself. Well, I don't know. He probably didn't make the deal, but he should be mad at the deal, whoever agreed on that, because, yeah, he clearly has the worst end of that.
So we gave them a cloaking device. They gave us a piece of paper that says, the founders are complicated and the Jem'Hadar are really tough. The Romulans were quite stupid in this episode. I could use that as a lead-in to my list of gripes.
Let's do that then.
Okay, the Romulans were so stupid about Odo not being a founder, as in this is basic logical exclusion of one group from another group, that even an infant could understand.
Yeah, that was a little annoying that they wouldn't catch on.
I think this episode raises so many questions that a lot of it makes not much sense.
Such as?
Okay, so there's this singularity orbiting Deep Space Nine. Okay, first of all, Dak says it's orbiting in a roughly elliptical fashion, but orbits are specifically elliptical. That's like saying the square had roughly 4 sides. Later on, they find out that singularity is actually the warp drive of a Romulan battleship.
Yeah.
So it's cloaked, but they can just see the engines through the cloak. presumably that's not surprising to any of them. So the cloaks are completely pointless.
When you have some certain type of radar, I think they touched on this one time when they were in the Defiant and they were worried about being discovered. And they said, well, if they have this little bit of technology, they'll see us. Otherwise, we're good.
Well, okay, fair enough. But now that they know that, surely all Romulan cloaking devices are useless for Romulans.
Yeah.
But that was a massive piece of intel that they just got dropped, and Cisco wasn't even that interested. Okay, so if that was their ship engines, why was it orbiting the station? Why were they driving around in circles?
They were lost? I don't know.
Some guy's just asleep at the steering wheel. He's leaned off to the side and they're just going around in circles. That might actually explain why it was roughly elliptical. Like when he twitched in his sleep, he judged it and it wasn't quite a perfect ellipse. There you go.
We solved it. You're a real Odo.
There was the one of the Romulans said, interesting theory, but that's all it is, a theory. Now that everyone has the internet, people are very particular about the word theory and its meanings.
Yes.
They were using the very common phrasing of that rather than the scientific phrasing, which is excusable if it wasn't a bloody science show. Hypothesis would have been a better word. Oh well, this happens.
That error is so common and prevalent.
It's not even really an error because when people say theory, they mean what in scientific terms is called a hypothesis. So you can't just say theory means this because language is descriptive, not prescriptive. The Romulan plan to blow up Deep Space Nine and the wormhole and leave no witnesses didn't work, presumably.
Why? Because O'Brien got away?
Yeah, you can't kill O'Brien. And they evacuated tons of people, and we can presume other evacuating ships escaped. And those ships have warps, so they could just bomb it to Bajor or send a message to Starfleet saying, yep, Romulans did it.
That O'Brien didn't know what happened, though.
But to say it would definitely leave no witnesses is a huge overstatement of how good their plan was. It didn't even look like an accident. The station had clearly been shot to bits. Saying that, it did collapse the wormhole and blow up the station, which was cool to see.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. They blew up the model. I love when models are blown up.
It looks so much better than CGI. It was actually not the original Deep Space Nine model. It was a recast from the same mold. Obviously, they didn't blow up the model halfway through season 3. That would have made filming more stuff difficult.
What if they never showed the outside again? Just use the same shots they've made already?
Well, that would bode well for the Dominion. They'd never come to Deep Space Nine, or if they did, they would only see it out of the windows from inside. No external shots. Interesting fact, the space station model is 6 foot across. I don't know if that's interesting, but it is a fact.
It's longer than I am tall. That's another thing that's a fact that is not interesting.
It's shorter than I am tall. I said earlier on that time travel episodes always have massive plot holes, and this one I think really does, and it's all down to the last time skip, which makes no sense.
I didn't follow that because I thought he was able to time travel because of the toxins in his body.
Yeah, he was.
So how could future O'Brien jump back?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
I assumed I missed something.
Well, it always seemed like the shift forwards and the shift back were linked, so what got shifted forwards was dragged back to the same instant. Whereas in the last jump, he gets shifted forwards, and then whoever has the device, I guess he got another dose of toxins when he put it on, he gets pulled back because he doesn't go back to the same instant. But that's not even the worst thing about that final time skip. When O'Brien jumps forwards, he sees himself in bed. But why would he be in bed? And he wasn't aware of this plan to go forwards. It was the timeline from the previous shift, but surely he would be in a new timeline based on the shift he's currently making. Okay, so that was shift 5 was the last one that was naturally happened. That was when he sees DS9 blown up.
Okay.
Then shift 6 is the artificially induced one that goes 3.5 hours forwards. But he doesn't shift into timeline 6, branching from the point where he jumps. He jumps back into timeline 5 from the previous jump, but at an earlier point.
Oh, right.
That doesn't make sense, or it isn't consistent with how it worked before.
Yeah.
Which is why that O'Brien was confused about what was going on and was confused why he didn't feel bad. Then they just brushed it away with them both saying, "I hate temporal anomalies," which was funny. But it kind of showed that even the writers at this point were getting confused about what was going on.
Just throw a joke in there. No one will notice.
Well, it kind of works because the episode's easy enough to follow, and it easily could have been very convoluted, but it was quite clear. It's a good episode, I think.
Was that it for your list of gripes?
That probably does it. I could rant more about how little sense that end makes, but it sounds like you got something.
Yeah, when they find out that that box becomes booby-trapped, Odo installs a surveillance camera. Why isn't the whole station under surveillance already?
Yeah, especially from Odo, who is quite authoritarian. You'd think he would have full surveillance all over the place.
Yeah, I would expect Cisco to say, "Oh, we should install a camera," and then Odo to say, "I already did that."
Especially when they have foreign dignitaries visiting all the time.
Yeah, stuff can happen in any little corner, and it's not a big deal to store data in the future, so that shouldn't be a concern. When Odo opens that booby trap box, I really wanted him to stand far away and then stretch his arm 50 feet and then open it instead of opening it right next to it.
That would actually have been quite cool, although realistically, if they were going to be that safe, wouldn't they just have an opening machine, like a bomb disposal robot? We have these robots nowadays. You'd think they would have emergency bomb disposal super robot man. Or just open it and
Sure,
get shot in the
but
face.
yeah. I like any excuse to see Odo shift and stretch and morph.
That's true. It's a little treat when he does it. Here's a question. Why in timeline 3, I believe, was O'Brien opening that panel anyway? When the only reason they knew about that was because of what happened after that jump?
The dignitaries, or excuse me, the Romulans were moved there. Something went wrong with that living quarters as well, and instead of moving them again, they got O'Brien to go try to fix it, and then he died. I made all of that up.
Okay, fair enough. They didn't seem to care about the panel. They just said it was a boring panel. There's nothing useful behind it. So it seems like the only reason they would open it is because the device was there. The only reason they knew that the device was there is because they saw him open it. Temporal jam.
Well, after they transport whatever device thing into there, maybe some sort of scanner detected an anomaly, and then O'Brien went to check it out, not thinking it would be something fatal.
Here's the oddest thing about this whole episode is if O'Brien didn't have this time-shifting thing, everyone would have died.
Yes.
So he got it on the right day. Not only that, he jumped and twice... Okay, he saw himself almost get stabbed. He probably would have died there. He saw himself get shot. He would have died. He saw himself dead from the jumps and happened to bump into Bashir, telling him how to fix that. And he'd saved the whole station. So his jumps were remarkably lucky. He should have died on this day.
Well, he did. He ended up dying in the last jump.
I guess. Well, everyone should have died. And he should have died several times over. So he was remarkably, astoundingly lucky to get these jumps at just the right times to save everyone's life and kind of save his own life as well. About 4 times.
I love his proposal at the end for the final solution. Riddle my body with toxins. It shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, he is willing to stand up and do the right thing because he is a brave and noble O'Brien.
Yeah, he's the best. The timing of that second shift kind of made me laugh because it happened in the middle of Dax spouting some mumbo jumbo. So it made me think O'Brien was so bored and then he drifted off, and that's why he jumped.
Well, this episode was pretty heavy on the technobabble. Sometimes it's not so bad, sometimes they just lay it on a bit too thick.
It's expected, though. They couldn't get away with none of it.
Well, I guess it would probably just be okay to say, we don't know sometimes.
Yeah, because we don't know a lot of things. Well, they did that with the during the Burial death episode. We don't know what will happen with him if we do this.
True, but it's rare for anyone in the Federation to see a science thing and then say, I have absolutely no idea and I'm never likely to know what did that. They always say, maybe it was a quantum subspace inversion field ramming into a tachyon shafted particle. And then later on, oh yeah, it turns out it was.
Would you like to hear a quote from this episode?
Yes, I would.
This is one puppet who doesn't like her strings pulled. Aren't puppets made expressly for their strings to be pulled?
Yeah, it's odd she says she is a puppet, but yet doesn't want to have her strings pulled. Surely she should have just said, I'm not their puppet.
Yeah, or I'm not a puppet, period.
Yeah, odd phrasing, Kira.
Maybe it got lost in translation and it makes more sense in Bajoran.
Yeah, which should happen more often. There's actually a Next Generation episode all about that, and it's a good episode.
Portponky is referring to Star Trek, The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 2, Darmok.
I think it's time to jump forward to the next episode.
But then we'll change the time. No, that's fine. Let's jump.
Okay. Jumping now.
Okay.